All right, assalamu alaikum, everybody. I hope you all are doing super well. Welcome back to another topical class of our past paper, on our past paper for our May June 2026 session. And inshallah, in today's class, we would be exploring some beautiful sort of questions for chapter number 2, which is all about data transmission. So I hope you guys have revised the concepts well over the last week, and also have been started completing your, what do you call it, chapter number 1 practice assignment, so that we could mark you guys on it. Inshallah, the notes for this would be shortly shared on the Google Classroom. And we ended the class having a discussion on this encryption, right? So we would try our best to cover as many questions as possible for chapter number 2, starting from 2024. We're going to slowly move ahead, and we'll try to do maximum sort of questions. Before moving on, can you guys, I hope you guys can see the screen, right? And also, is my audio clearly audible? If anyone could kindly confirm, so that we could start off with the March 2024 question paper. Perfecto. All right, let's then start off. So the first question would be from the March 2024 exam papers. As you all are aware, we are going to be following the exact same procedures which we did earlier on for the previous past paper series. We're going to be taking one question from the paper and would be then solving it. And if we don't find any question in that relevant exact paper, we're going to miss that and going to go to the next one. Is that fine? Chalo ji, just a minute. Let me see if we have a question. Oh, we do. We have a pretty good question. Chalo, let's do this first part. This chapter will be mostly testing you all on error detection methods. Okay. So you're going to find multiple questions where they're going to be like, okay, tell us how do you find error using this specific method. Like, for instance, have a look at this question. It clearly states that at the end of, okay, so there are no previous parts because those are not relevant to chapter number 2. You're only going to be doing parts which are relevant to chapter number 2. All right. So yeah, so the first part of here says that at the end of each day, the self, okay, wait, is it not connected? It is. Okay, so at the end of each day, the self-driving tractor transmits the data it has collected to the farmer's computer in the house. And this transmission uses an echo check. So if you remember, we studied echo check, right? Remember? And now it says that describes the role of the self-driving tractor and the farmer's computer in the echo check. So rather than, this has a bit of an element towards chapter number 6 too, which is about robotics. But we're going to be answering it in the perspective of an echo check. Let me also confirm whether we have to include any chapter 6 element or not. But till then, let's have a discussion on what echo check is. So if you guys remember what we studied when we were basically looking into this topic, we saw that echo check basically comes from the physics word echo, which means that the data or the information is going one side and then it is coming back the other way around. And what we studied in echo check was that basically you have a model where when the sender sends the data to the receiver sort of resends it back to the sender. And so now the sender has the data, both which he sent and the one which he received from the receiver. And now he's going to compare it. If they're the same, he would be like, okay, yeah, this was exactly the data which I tried to send. And so there has been no problem. We are good to go. But if it was different, this indicates that yes, there is some sort of a problem. So now this question basically says that you need to describe the role of the self-driving tractor and the farmer's computer. Now, based upon the scenario, we can observe that basically the self-driving tractor is sending the data to the farmer's computer, which means this is the sender, and then the farmer's computer, this is basically the receiver, right? So we have this as the sender and then add this as the receiver. So now they're asking us in 3 marks that what's going to happen, which results in an echo check. So we're going to say that the self-driving tractor will be sending data to the farmer's computer. Then it would be like the farmer's computer will resend the data back to the self-driving tractor. The farmer's computer will send the data to the tractor, The tractor will then compare the 2 sets of data. will then compare the two sets of data. What two sets? The one which he sent and the one which he received, right? So it's like I'm telling you, okay, I'm giving you this data file, you take it and then you return it back to me, and I'm like, okay, I sent this information and I received this information from you. Are they the same? If they are, yeah, no errors. But if they're different, yes, an error occurred. So it's the same model. So the tractor will then compare the two sets of data, the two sets of data, and if they are the same, no errors have occurred. No errors have occurred. Otherwise, the error will be detected. The error will be detected. Now, an important point here to note is that the examiner asks us, sorry for that, Lahore smog is literally killing me. But now this question has 3 marks. And now that's the purpose of these classes. We do not want the examiner to be spammed with points, right? They gave us 3 marks, which means they're expecting us to write 3 points. They are believing that we should be writing the data is being transmitted back and that the data will be compared. And if they are identical, there is no error, right? These are the 3 main points. But if you want to go with a fourth point, like the way I did that, otherwise, if there is an error will be detected, and what's going to happen? The data would be resent. The data will be resent. If you write this point, you're going to get a 4 valid point too, will be resent. But now you might be wondering, sir, the question is of 3 marks. Why should I go with 4 points? Now remember, this question does not specify you to write 3 points. Yeah, it's recommended you're going to be writing 3 points, but sometimes what happens is that your third point, usually you might be thinking that it's a valid point, but it might be vague. And so they do not acknowledge vague answers. Now, the test which you all are being given right now for chapter number 1, which has the deadline tomorrow, 12:59, inshallah, in that I'm going to be looking, mostly me and my TAs would be looking for vague points. And you're going to note that a lot of you will be getting these remarks that your data information are vague. And by vague, we mean that, yeah, you might be correct to some extent, but it's not according to what the examiner might be asking you to tell us, right? And so in that scenario, you're going to lose mark. So in a question where they do not state how many points you need to be stating, it's recommended that if the question is of 3 mark, go with 4. If the question is of 5 mark and you know the 6 point, write the 6 point. Because if any of the above point was vague, they will be awarding the valid point, which you might have added as an extra point towards the end. So it's better not to take the risk, because you're going to observe this too, that you might be thinking that this point is valid, but it won't be something which the examiner would be crediting. So that's a big problem, and you guys should be aware of this. So yeah. So now we are done with the first question. Now we're going to be doing the second part of the same exam paper from the Feb-March 2024. I'll be posting the picture up here. This one is again testing error checking method. And just from the diagram, you would have observed that this is basically none other than parity bit. Parity check, right? Remember the parity byte, parity bit, and all that stuff. We're going to be now looking into this, but before that, let me write this up here. That is the Feb March 2024 paper. Feb March 24. Say, so now we're going to be looking into this question. It says that another method of error checking is a parity block check, okay? And that the table shows 7 bytes that are transmitted using what? Odd parity. Extra important, very, very important point. Odd parity. And that the parity bit has been completed for each byte. We just need to complete the parity byte. Now, when they say that we have odd parity, this basically means that all these vertical lines should have an odd number of ones. Okay, we studied this earlier on in parity bit concept, that when we are talking about parities, if we set the parity as an odd, this means that every register, every data bit being sent here and there will be including either an even number of ones or an odd number of ones. And who's going to decide what's the number of ones going to be? It's basically going to be based upon the parity using which it was being transmitted. So in the exam, they clearly mentioned that they're going to be using the odd parity. When they say that they're going to be using the odd parity, They try to say that we would be having odd number of ones. So now I'm going to be counting the number of ones, and based on that, I'm going to be writing my parity byte. Like let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is even. So because 4 is even and I want to make it odd, right? We need it as odd. So I'm going to be writing 1 up here, right? Then like that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 is already odd, right? So I would be adding a 0 so that the number of ones altogether are odd. So this makes it 5, this makes it 5 in this row, what do you call a column? Now let's do it for bit 6. 1. So okay, 1 is odd. 1 is odd, right? So we're going to be writing 1 and we need a 0 up here. Now this isn't required. This is just for my own ease, but we are just trying to make odd number of ones, right? Now let's do this. 1 again, 1, so we need it odd, right? So we're going to be putting a 0 up here. Then let's do this. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is basically an even number. We need to make it odd. So if I want to make 4 odd, I could put 1 up here, and this is going to make 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5, and 5 is odd, right? Then just like that, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Again a 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. Again a 1, and 1, 2, 3. Again a 0. Now, the good part is that once you do it this way, column wise, you're going to note that the parity byte you get at the end, this would also be having odd parity automatically. So like if I count the number of ones in here, it's going to be 1, 2, 3. It's 3 basically, and 3 is basically an odd number, which hence verifies that there has been no error, because if there was any sort of an error and maybe this specific byte row was even, this would have indicated that an error has occurred. So if in exam this might have been even, and in the next part they might have stated that okay, there was some how do we get to know that an error has occurred? So you had to tell them using this byte, that parity byte eventually resulted in an even number of ones, which shows that an error has occurred, right? Do you all understand this concept, and did you guys get the 2 questions we just solved? Quickly in the chat box, folks. Perfect, perfect. All right, now let's move on to the next question. The next question is now from chapter number 2 again. And this is a pretty good question because it's going to be testing multiple concepts. It's starting off with your encryption and will be slowly moving towards the data transmission, which we studied at the first place. So let me just enlarge it a bit so that you guys can clearly see it. All right, so we have this up here, and now let's do it. So again, from Feb March 2024. Now this question says that the data is encrypted before transmission. State the purpose of encrypting data. So if you guys remember, we discussed this, that encryption has only one benefit. It does not prevent the data from getting hacked. Your data can still be hacked. But even if the data is hacked and we have encrypted the data, the hacker will not be able to make any sense of the information. So we say that the benefit or maybe the purpose of encrypting is that even if the data is intercepted, it cannot be understood. See? So if the data is intercepted, it cannot be understood. Not be understood. And just 1 mark, and so you are expected to write 1 point. 1 mark equal to 1 point. Okay, you do not need to have a proper explanation up here. Now, the second part says describe the differences between symmetric and asymmetric encryption. Now, ideally, this is a 4-mark point, which means that you should go with 1 point about symmetric, that this happens like this way in symmetric, and then you tell that in asymmetric, this is how it's different. Okay, and then symmetric and then asymmetric. So if you guys have a general look at it, we have observed that asymmetric. Wa alaikum assalam, Inaya, how are you doing? Are you doing well? So now we have generally seen that, Alhamdulillah, I'm doing great. So now we have symmetric and asymmetric encryption. Now in the first case, yeah, bilkul, bilkul. ISL won the best delegation, and also your guys, your TA, of all of you who would be marking your quizzes and all that stuff too, he was a part of the winning team too. So it's great to know that, mashallah, the TA which you guys have, he's also pretty much very, very competent. So that's another plus point for you all. So now coming to the main discussion, symmetric and asymmetric. Remember the keys we saw and we learned that when we are talking about symmetric, symmetric has a single shared key used for both encryption and decryption. Whereas asymmetric has different keys, a public key and a private key. And the public key is used to encrypt the data, whereas the private key is used to decrypt it. and everyone has the public key, but only the people who want to have the data or wants to receive the data, or like only those intended know the private key, right? So these are the common differences. So I will be like, okay, let's describe it. Symmetric has a shared key. Symmetric has a shared key which is used both to encrypt and decrypt the data, and decrypt the data. 2 points. So you wrote 2 points up here. Okay, one point being that it has a shared key, and then the other one encrypt and decrypt one. This is another point. The third point could be like, let's say we have 4, but I want to go with 5 points. Okay, I want to go with 5, one extra. So the third point could be both the sender and the receiver has the same key. Both the sender and the receiver have the same key. Oh, hold up again. Have the same key. 3 points still here. Now we're going to be discussing the other part, the asymmetric part, right? For asymmetric, now we're going to be discussing asymmetric key. Yeah, asymmetric encryption, my bad. Asymmetric encryption uses different keys. 1 point. The public key, which we all know, is basically used. The public key is used to encrypt the data. Whereas the private key is used to decrypt the data. Now, till this point, we have sort of listed down decrypt is used to the data. Yeah, my bad. Decrypt and encrypt the data. Yeah. So till this point, we have basically mentioned 5 points. One being this, second being this, the third one being this, then the fourth one being this, and the fifth one being encryption and decryption. Now, because the question was of 4 marks, I was expected to write just 4 points. I wrote one extra just to be on the safe side, because the examiner did not mention up here that you need to write 4 points. They just said describe. So it's up to me. How many points I want to mention, that's up to me. But now if I want a hash space, I can also write that, okay, in asymmetric encryption, the sender and the receiver basically have different keys, and like the sender uses the public key, whereas the receiver uses the private key. So yeah, or I can say the private key is only with those who are receiving the data, or only those who intend to receive the data, right? So we can also write one extra point, but because it's a 4-marker question, I would recommend 5 is more than enough. Samajh gaye? Now the next part basically says that the data is transmitted using packet switching. Remember packet switching? Those map where we were sending data through multiple nodes here and there, all interconnected between devices and no routers, and eventually it was reaching the computer at the other end, right? Remember this diagram? So now it says that we have a packet header. And what are the 2 items that are contained in the packet header? Now, packet header, destination, IP address, and packet number. Perfect. Great to know. Exactly सही इस तरीके से आपने बताया. It's the destination, it's the sender's IP address, and it's the packet number. So we can write any of the two. We have the destination address, we have the sender address, and then we have the packet number. We could go with the packet number. This was, if you guys remember, I said that it's basically your driver, the one who knows where we are heading to, right? So he knows that how many passengers we have on the car. So packet number. Then they are aware of where they are going, right? So the receiver's IP address, and definitely the driver is also aware that where are they going from. So they also know the sender's IP address. So remember it this way, and it's going to be very, very easy. Then it says give the purpose of a router in the packet switching process. So what does a router do? Remember, firstly, it chooses the more efficient route. So a packet goes to a router, and then at that point they make a decision, okay, what's the shortest one? So it basically chooses the most efficient route, then it sends each packet towards its destination, and it generally controls the route the packet takes. So we can say that it sends packet towards each destination. It's a 1 marker, so it's going to be 1 point. See, sends a packet towards its destination. Its destination. This is one valid point you have to state. Destination, point number one. And if you want to go with the second point, you can also talk about how router allows you to basically choose more efficient route. More efficient route. And you get a perfect one-on-one for writing these 2 points. Also sequences, ISIS. Hassan, can you explain a bit what do you mean to say by ISIS? I do not get that. Sequence, acha, ruko, let me remember, let me recall. In the notes when we were discussing this, let me go up there. Oh, zyada hi ho gaya. We had these things in the header. जहाँ तक मुझे याद है it was the yeah, so we had these three things. See, we had the IP address, we had the IP address of the receiver, then we had the size of the file, and then we had the sequence number. Now we wrote these 3 points, and I guess we should be good to go. So if you're talking about the sequence number, so sequence number and packet number are basically sort of the same thing. So sure, if you want to use your microphone, of course. Yeah, it's the same thing. If you were trying to explain the sequence number, then packet number and sequence number are basically the same thing. We can also do it this way. Sequence number. But according to the marking scheme, it's basically written as the packet number. Okay? Were you trying to ask the same question? Or was it something different? Because if it's different, then you can ask. Okay, perfect. Now, this basically explains two crucial concepts, your encryption and also your packet header story. Before moving on, can you guys kindly let me know in the chat box, is this clear or not? Because if not, then we have to do it again so that you guys can understand the concepts well. Perfect. Alize, perfect. Ramin, got it. Zabardast. So now we are done with the Feb March 2024 papers. Yay, let's go. So now we're going to be moving towards the May June 2024 exam paper, and the first exam question we get up here is related to encryption. Now you have basically 2 to 3 types of encryption questions, and there are no other question, at least unless it's very some complex sort of question. It's very much repeated, and it's either the differences or like how one of them works. So like if you look up here in this question, they are saying that how does symmetric encryption works. So you need to talk about the data being encrypted using the same key. So you're going to say that the first and the most crucial point about encryption up here is that we have the data being decrypted and encrypted using the same key. So data, let me just zoom in so that you guys can see it clearly. So data is encrypted and decrypted using the same key. The same key firstly. Then you need to talk about the whole process. If you guys remember those diagrams that I was like plain text, key, and then ciphertext and all that stuff. So you're going to just be explaining all the same exact story. You're going to be saying that the plain text, or I can say firstly, the plain text is converted into ciphertext using a key. And how is the key generated? Using an algorithm, remember, which has been generated using an algorithm, which has been generated using an algorithm, 3 points will get. And the key is basically used firstly by the sender and is then transmitted to the receiver, which then uses who then uses the key to basically decrypt the data, right? So you're going to say that the key is transmitted to the receiver. The key is transmitted to the receiver, who then uses it to decrypt the data. And this marks the perfect 4 on 4 mark answer for you. Perfect 4. समझ गए? Again, give the purpose of encryption. Same question, exactly same logic. To help keep the data secure by making it meaningless. To make the data meaningless. ये लिख लो. To make the data meaningless. Now, in some marking scheme, you might be looking up to the point where they say that, okay, IP address of the source and oh, okay, perfect. I get it now. Acha. So, in some marking schemes, you're going to find the point stated as not as to make the data meaningless, but also to make the data secure. Now, it's recommended to write the meaningless point because it's being used more often. And basically, your encryption does not make the data secure. Your data is never secure. It's sort of, again, something which the hackers can still get an access to. But the only point is that they can no longer make sense of it. But it doesn't mean that your data is more secure. Why? Because what if they get an access to the key? So even if you have encryption and they get the access to key, this means that they can convert that meaningless data into some meaningful thingy, which makes it not that much secure. So the main point, if ever this question pops up in your exam, that you need to list down the purpose of encryption, you need to talk about how it makes the data meaningless. And this is the most ideal answer out there. Samajh gaye? So let me find some other question from chapter number 2. Okay, we do have a question up here. A pretty good question though. So, okay, let me just paste this and let's do this. Okay, so let me see. Do you guys have any message? Guys, is this clear which we just discussed, the part which we just discussed, the previous question? Perfect. Uh, Everyone else, is it clear or do you guys have any questions? Good. बाकी भी बताएं अपना. Ramin, is it clear? Also, Tosif, is it clear? Kindly confirm. Okay, perfect. All right, so now let's look into this question. It says that we need to talk about some error detection method. So they gave us some statements, and now we're going to be using these statements evaluate the error detection method. So the first statement is like, okay, an odd or even process can be used. Bro, we just did a question on this. What type of what do we call it? And what type of error checking method allows you to deal with odd or even numbers? We just did a question on it. Exactly. Parity. Parity byte, parity block, parity check, parity bit. Whatever word you're going to write. But the important keyword is basically parity. So you can say parity bit, block, byte, but the main word is going to be parity check. Say, then the second one says a value is calculated from the data using an algorithm, and this happens before and after the data is transferred. So this is exactly the representation of the error detection method with the name checksum. So your checksum is the one where you basically have to sort of calculate the data, and then we're going to be sending it and then going to be recalculating and then comparing it. Okay, so Tosif sent the other 4 too. So we're going to be looking up it slowly and going to see how good Tosif's answer is. So the third part says a copy of the data is sent back to the sender by the receiver. It's the same tractor example which we just did. So the data goes and it's again resent and then compared. This is basically echo check. Echo check. The fourth one says that, okay, we have an acknowledgement and timeout. This, if you guys remember, is the exact representation of the timer error checking method, which was ARQ. Remember, we were like, okay, timer lag gaya, and if the data does not reaches back within that time, you're going to be basically automatically resending the data. If it's received and it's correct, we're going to be sending a positive acknowledgement, otherwise a negative acknowledgement. So this method is basically known as ARQ. Or if you want to write the longer form, it's automatic repeat query, but it's recommended write ARQ. And in the last one, say a value is appended to the data that has been calculated using the data. And this value is basically checked on data entry. This basically is the one for check digit. Now, if you remember, I gave you guys the example of ISBN. So I was like, okay, you have those ISBN numbers, and it's like the first 9, 10 digits are used to basically calculate the last digit. And this one is basically then compared for your encryption purposes. So this is compared. So this method, which basically uses all the other digits to calculate one single digit at the end, is basically known as check digit. And this is a pretty good question because you guys should be aware of how to recognize it, and at the same time, you guys should be aware to explain all of these error checking methods. This means Tosif's answer was perfectly correct. Great to know that, Tosif. Keep it up. So now we have done this one other question too, and now let's move on. By the way, I don't have water with me, right? I am extremely thirsty. Never mind, आगे बाद में कर लेंगे. But that's the only question in the summer 2024 exam paper, right? So let me just do this. Let me write this up here. That's the May June 2024 question. Let me write it up here. May June 24 paper number 12. Okay. Now we're shifting towards May June 2024 paper number 13. Just a minute. Is this clear, guys? एक से मैंने एक message पढ़ना है. Everyone in the chat box, is this clear? Good, good, good. Perfect. Just give me a minute. किधर गया? Okay, so we have a video. All right, so never mind. So back to where we are. So now we're going to be doing this one, another question from the summer 2024 paper number 13. Let me look for a question from chapter number 2. And we basically try to do these questions from directly papers because a lot of topicals do not include the latest questions. And so we should be doing the post 2023 question so that it's more of, you can say, something which can be tested on your exam, because the template is sort of pretty much similar to the one which is being used in the 2023 and afterward exam papers. So we don't have a question. We don't have a question. Let me look into paper number 11 then. Oh, guys, I'm feeling sleepy too, man. These events are really very challenging. And back to back, no. So we have a question up here from the summer 2024, paper number 11. Okay, so let me paste this up here. I hope you guys can see it. And now this question asks us to talk about the structure of a data packet. You guys would have remembered we had three things in a data packet. Remember, we're going to be now talking about those three things. We're going to talk about, okay, how we have the header, how we have the payload, how we have the trailer. And now, because it's a 4-marker question, we don't need a lot of details on it, but you guys should be mentioning about what each thing constitutes of. So we can say that a packet is split into 3 different sections. I can talk about that. A packet is split into 3 different sections, into 3 different sections. Oh, just a minute. Sorry, I have a call. Just a minute. In class. All right, so we have to write 3 points up here. Firstly, the packet is split into 3 different sections, and then the name of those 3 sections. Oh, it's a 3-marker. Okay. Then, firstly, first being the एक्शन ग्रुप में भी कोई MUN के रिलेटेड भी काम हो रहा है. लेट मी सी. Come to the just a minute. Let me send a picture. Oh man, committee. All right, never mind. So first being the header. Sorry for such small delays. It's totally because we have these events going on. I'm not representing any country. I'm the ACD at Lumen. I hope you guys have heard about Lumen. It's LUM's Model UN, and it's Pakistan's most biggest MUN society. So we have a lot of delegates, and then we have events going on. But I just missed out the social because I was like, leave it. The classes are important. So because we do not love missing out on classes, right? Unless it's something really important. So we just need to talk about the important name. So it's being the first being the header, followed by then we have the payload, and finally and finally the trailer. And now, because it's only a three marker question, this would get you a perfect 3 on 3. But if you guys have space, you can also explain more onto it, that you can talk about it the way Tosif did, that the header includes the packet number, destination IP address, whereas the payload constitutes of the actual data, whereas your trailer includes some error detection method and also something which ensures the accuracy of the data. See, but because it's a three marker question, you guys should be good to go even if you write this, right? So now the second part of the same question says that packet switching is used to transmit the data packets across the network. Identify the device that controls which path is taken by each data packet. So we just had a discussion on this. It's routers. Perfect. It's routers. You're going to be talking about router, that is basically your router. And now in exam, don't mention nodes. Okay. Node can be counted correctly, but router is the formal keyword. In your exam, if you're ever talked about, if there is a discussion on node, just be aware that node basically refers to routers. But apart from that, it's recommended that you guys should just write the keyword router. Otherwise, node and router are sort of the same thing. Say, so we have now this. We just need to write router, and then the C part of the same question now comes to the actual serial data transmission, where it's talking and asking us that serial data transmission is used to transmit the data packets across the network. And now explain why serial data transmission. The keyword up here is why. So why is serial data transmission used to transmit the data packets? Now in this question, we need to basically talk about the benefits of using serial data transmission. Okay, so we can say that if serial is being used, this does mean that the data is being sent over a longer distance. So to make it more reliable, and so that to ensure that the data is not skewed, and that it arrives in a sequence with minimal errors, we are making use of serial data transmission. And now because it's only three markers, we just need to write 3 points. So we can go with something like, okay, the data might be sent, might have been sent sent through a long distance. A long distance, firstly. So yeah, the data might have been sent through a long distance, and so serial data transmission is used to ensure mission is used to ensure that the data is not skewed, is not skewed, and that the bits are in order, and that the bits are in order, improving the reliability of the transmission, improving the reliability of the transmission. So you sort of we of the transfer. Oh, so we sort of mentioned 4 points up here. Again, one extra. It's just so that you guys know that if ever you know a point, try to include it. Say otherwise, even if I would have written these 3 points long distance and then that the data is not skewed and the bits are in order, we would have received a perfect 3 on 3. But if you do get a chance, writing one extra point would not hurt you. It's just going to make you play more safe. Say so it's going to help you. It's going to help you with your exams and with ensuring that you do not miss upon important crucial points. Okay, so we have also discussed serial data transmission, and now before ending the class, I would love to do one other question, but before moving on, I want you guys to kindly confirm, is this clear, this serial data transmission, or do you guys want a quick review on what we just did? Otherwise, you can look into this one other question from the same exam paper. Perfect. Perfect. That's great to know. All right. So now this question is again from encryption, a very easy, straightforward question. And it says that the data is encrypted to save, keep it safe. Okay. And now we just need to complete the paragraph. Now, such questions are now commonly being tested. You guys should be prepared for this. Now, when I was giving my ASCS, a question like this popped up in which they asked us to explain something where the paragraph was sort of directly from the book, as per the people, the students. But I sort of did not study it directly from the book, and so I was at a disadvantage. So I would recommend that once we cover a topic, it's really important that you guys also go and read the book. Don't learn stuff in the book, just go read it to understand, yeah, whatever we studied in class, is it related up here? Is it talking about the same thing? There's a possibility you might learn something better through the book way, or maybe something which might get revised and something that can help you in exam, or maybe there are some keywords which might have been used in the book which are not present up here. So it's really recommended that you guys must read the book before your exam, because it's really crucial that whatever paragraph like this pops up from your book, so it's important that you read a paragraph very attentively and also listen to everything up here so that you guys can understand questions like this. So it says that dash is encrypted into dash using a dash, and the encrypted data is then transmitted from the sender to the receiver, and then the encrypted data is then decrypted using a dash. Okay, so because they gave us the hint that it's using asymmetric encryption, this means we would be having both private as well as public key. So we definitely know that the text which we have at the first place, that has to be the plain text. So the plain text is basically encrypted into ciphertext using what? Using, because it's an asymmetric encryption and we are encrypting it using a public key, right? We will be using a public key. And definitely the public key is then transmitted to the sender. So, and the sender will be then decrypting it using his or her own private key. Private key. And this is how you get a perfect 4 on 4 on such an exam paper question. समझ गए? This is maximum you all should be aware of क्या कहते हैं encryption. इससे ज़्यादा questions आते नहीं हैं, समझ गए? So now before ending the class, I would love to do one other question, but Hassan and Tosif, perfect, you guys gave the right answers. Tosif, you missed the public key part. You also have to write about the public key, okay? And it's really important that you guys are fully attentive, because a lot of times there is a possibility if you messed, like let's say you messed this first option as like the ciphertext, so you not only lose mark for this but also lose the mark for this, because you make ciphertext this and the plain text this, so you're going to lose marks for both the blanks. So it's really important that you guys have full attention towards it. Now let's do one last question, and then I can show you how you can find more questions regarding this topic, so that if you guys need more, or you call it revision, you guys can also do that. Let me see if we have a question for this in this 2024 winters paper. Okay, we don't have a question in paper number 12. Let's do paper number 13. Let's see. Just a minute. All right, so on paper number 13, do we have a question? No. Okay, we do have a good question up here. Let's do this. Let's do this. Okay, so let me just take a screenshot of it. And let's paste it down here. So this question talks about the initial concepts again. It says that a report is broken down into packets to be emailed. Okay, makes sense. October, November 24, paper number, I guess it's paper 13. Yep. So it says that we need to tell them what's there in the packet header. So it's pretty simple, because we are well aware that it includes the packet number. Okay. Also, one important point, always in such questions, look up here. Sometimes it's a circle and sometimes they say underline. So if it says underline, you just need to make a line like this. A lot of time, because students are very much in hurry, rather than making the underline, they make a circle like this, which I would never recommend. So it's really important that in these questions, when you need to highlight it, read the first word. Is it circle or is it your underlining? So the first circle is packet number, then definitely it's going to be the destination address, and finally it's going to be the originator's address. And you get a perfect 3 on 3. Then it says that each packet is sent along a different path from the employee's device to the employee's device. And now we need to show the name of the method. So is it packet networking? No. Is it packet circuiting? No. Is it packet switching? Yeah, maybe. Is it packet transferring? No. So it's basically packet switching. This process, exactly, Tosif, this process where your data goes from one PC onto different sort of nodes and different sort of routers and eventually reaches a PC at the end, basically it makes use of the packet switching method. And packet switching is the correct answer to this, which 100% Tosif, you are correct. Now the third part, again, sort of, yes, Hassan, do you have a question? Isn't packet transferring also kind of correct? Now, see, that's the question. That's a pretty good question, Hassan. If you look up here in the question, they said method. Now, the method is basically having a formal name. Okay, it has this formal name. And the formal name of this whole process is basically known as packet switching. It's similar to saying that, okay, we might have the term register, right? So we have seen in chapter number 1 that registers are those slots where bits are stored, right? Data bits, zeros and ones. So rather than calling it a register, what if I call it something like bit storing place? Now, the concept is same. You might be correct, but you won't be getting the mark. Why? Because it's not the exact word which the examiner expected you. So now when I was talking about using a vague terminology, in this case, packet transferring is a vague terminology. And it's also incorrect because in the question, they clearly asked you to tell us the method. And every method has a set name. It's just like if in chemistry, you're mixing two things. Now, I do not study chemistry, I'm not aware, but I hope so. It's like something like maybe centrifuging, in which you basically rotate something and you separate them, right? It's something related to centrifuge or centrifugal process. I'm not sure though. But now it has a proper name of centrifuge, right? So what if I call it splitting process? Now, the method name is centrifuge. So if ever asked in exam, you need to talk about centrifuge rather than splitting the stuff. So for that reason, your answer number D is incorrect up here, and it's basically point number C, which is the correct answer. So do keep such keywords in mind. Samajh gaye? Is this clear, Hassan? Perfect. All right. So now the third part of the same question says that, okay, hardware device is used to control the path. And what's the name? We did it multiple times. It's basically a router. And then the last part says that an email data is checked for errors, blah, blah, blah. And it is making use of an echo check. Now, because we did echo check, I won't be repeating it again. But it basically is that you send the data from the sender to the receiver. The receiver then resends the data back to the sender. The two sets are then compared. And then based on that, they figure out the error. Now, we did a question like this, so I won't be repeating it. Figure out the error. And this officially marks the end of our topical class for today. Is this clear, everyone? We did multiple sort of questions, but I still feel like a lot of questions were not tested. Now, for that reason, you guys don't need to worry. Why? Because we have a lot of extra stuff available for you. I'm going to be sharing the screen. Yes, Tosif. Okay, perfect. Okay, samajh aa gayi. Okay, so now if you guys look up here, you can see that this is your classroom portal, right? So down here, we did multiple questions today in our today's class, but we also have extra stuff uploaded for you already. So we have the pre-2023 set. We have one other video, including 2025 questions. You also have some other extra past paper questions uploaded. Now, you have like 5-6 shared up here, 5-6 up here, 5-6 up here. And if I'm not wrong, we did 5-6 in today's class too. So altogether, you have like 20 plus questions. And if you watch all 4 of these recordings, inshallah, you guys will be very much good to go. And I can tell you that, inshallah, you all would be very much, you guys can easily, inshallah, after this, solve any sort of question for paper number 2. Chapter number 2. Now, that day in the computer science community group, if you guys are not added into it, just let me know. The community group, which has like 200 plus members, to all those who might be watching the recording of this later on, you guys can reach out to me either in the comments or some other section too. But if you guys are not added, let me know so that I can add you. A student asked me a question, and they were like, just a minute, and they were like, and they were basically like, let me tell, एक second, just guys. So, and they were like, basically, sir, if we watch these topical classes, or like if I attend your course, does this mean that I can easily get the distinction and A star? So it's important that, yeah, if you watch all this, you would be good to go. But practice from your side is also necessary. So like, for instance, we covered the content and at the same time conducted this one past paper class just to help you guys get the concept a bit more. But now it's up to you. These three recordings up here are optional, but I would 100% recommend, or perhaps I would make this compulsory, that you guys watch this over the weekend. If you guys don't have time right now, you do have your vacations going on, but still, it's like 1 hour long. Just watch 30 minutes, and even if you do it at like 2x or 1.5x, it's going to take 15 minutes. 15-20 minutes. So just cater out 15 minutes except for the class timing, and just watch these past paper questions, so that by the next Friday, inshallah, not next Friday, I will be posting the next assignment towards the mid of next week, inshallah. So when we are coming up with chapter number 2 assignment, you guys are fully prepared for it, so that you guys can provide us the perfect answer, and that we can answer all your queries apart from the one which you guys asked us during the class, right? So that's the whole procedure of how it's going to be conducted. I hope it's totally clear. Do you guys have any question regarding anything of the course, anything related to the topic, or any question? If not, that's all for today. I'll be ending the recording. See you guys inshallah tomorrow. Take care everybody, and Allah Hafiz. Allah Hafiz.